I tell you, the National Security Advisor in the U.S., John Bolton, has never worn the uniform. Condoleezza Rice was National Security Advisor to George W. Bush. She was never a member of the armed forces or any of the paramilitaries. So this idea that you must come from the armed forces to be the National Security Advisor to the president is wrong. And I am glad that the man did not listen to the postulations that were being propagated, in some circles, that you must come from a certain enclave to be able to occupy that position, because we need to start dismantling all those traditions before people will take them to be legal,
the law.
To be the law, because we have been following that same tradition over and over again. So we need to begin to dismantle all those myths, and make it clear that, look, you don't need to be a member of the armed forces or even a member of Nigerian police to be a national security advisor. You can be a university don who understands security better than those who have even worn the uniform.
In the words of Nelson Mandela, who is former president of South Africa, he once said, "Safety and security don't just happen. They are the result of collective consensus and public investment. We owe our children, the most vulnerable citizens in our society, a life free of violence and fear." Absolutely spot on. Now, our next quote is from Malala Yousafzai, who is a female education activist. She once said, "With guns, you can kill terrorists. With education, you can kill terrorism." Ooh, that's a huge one. All right, my last quote is from Pope Francis, who is head of the Catholic Church, the Bishop of Rome, and sovereign of the Vatican City-State. He once said, "Human rights are not only violated by terrorism, repression, or assassination, but also by unfair economic structures that create huge inequalities." Just because I like that one, I'll take the last one. And my last quote is from Mahmoud Darwish, who is a Palestinian poet and author. Once said, nothing justifies terrorism." And I agree with that one. Very warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here, the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. Now, a deadly clash between members of the Islamic State of West Africa, that's ISWAP, and Boko Haram fighters has left scores of terrorists killed in the northeast of Borno State. Sources said that the recent rivalry clash occurred along the road between Gajagana and Gajiram few days ago. A counter-insurgency expert and security analyst in Lake Chad, Zagozola Makama, who confirmed the killings, said some of the Boko Haram fighters on motorcycles staged an ambush to attack two vehicles of ISWAP, which led to a heavy fighting, like they used to say. Okay, so and the director, Defense Media Operations and Nigeria's Defense Headquarters, Major General Musa Damadami, placed the number of the surrendered Boko Haram members after the attack at 1,332. Now, that report is what we will be discussing today on the show, and also we'll talk about the appointment of the new NSA, appointment of new service chiefs, and the statements made by the acting Inspector General of Police. Then we'll divert a little bit and talk about the statement made by ex-militant Asari Dokubo and how it has really brought so much reactions on and off social media space. All right, so that's what we'll be discussing today with my guest on the show today. He is Captain Bishop Johnson, former U.S. Army retired and national defense and military strategist. We'll get straight into this discussion after this quick montage. I will see you after this time. Join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Captain's Television Studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now let's go straight to our conversation for today. And our guest on the show today is Captain Bishop Johnson. He is U.S. Army retired, national defense and military strategist. It is great to have you on the show again.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Welcome to the show. All right. So now quite a number of things that we need to discuss about, but let's see how we can manage the next 60 minutes. Okay. Now we'll start with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's appointment of the NSA and the service chiefs. And a lot of people, let's start with the NSA. A lot of people have come out to make their reactions. Reactions are still trailing with regards to the fact that he is a politician, even though he was a police intelligence officer, but then they keep reminding you that he once contested to become president, and then even this last election, he also contested to become the governor of Adamawa State. But then other people have come out to say that regardless, we've had people who, according to them, they said no person who has never been a military officer has had to occupy that position. But I remember I had to even remind someone that I think it was in 1999 where we had people who were not military officers. You had Jimeta, you had also Guazo, who were not military officers. So what exactly does it even, why all these reactions? So let's get your thoughts in that regard. What do you make of it all?
Well, I think this is you know, when in this country you start one thing, next thing you know, it becomes a tradition. And when it becomes a tradition, people think that is legal because it's a tradition. Mm. There is nothing in any of our statute book that says that that position must be occupied by only those who are from the armed forces. Mm. Nothing there. And like you have rightly pointed out, there have been other people who had occupied those that same position who were not members of the armed forces. Mm. So now if you ask me, quite frankly, you must not be a member of the armed forces or even a paramilitary member or police officer to occupy that position. You are the national security advisor to the president. All you need to do is to have understanding and knowledge of what security is all about.
Oh, okay.
You must not have carried the arms or weapons or war uniform.
Oh, so you could just be a security advisor or consultant?
Of course, you can.
Oh,
you can.
Okay.
In other clans, those positions are not meant for for those in the armed forces. I tell you, the national security advisor in the U.S., John Bolton, has never worn the uniform. Condoleezza Rice was national security advisor to George W. Bush. She was never a member of the armed forces or any of the paramilitaries. So this idea that you must come from the armed forces to be the national security advisor to the president is wrong. Mm. And I am glad that the man did not listen to the postulations that were being propagated, you know, in some circles that, you know, you must come from a certain, you know, enclave to be able to occupy that position. Because we need to start dismantling all those traditions before people will take them to be legal,
the law.
To be the law, you know, because we have been following that same tradition over and over again. So we need to begin to dismantle all those myths, you know, and make it clear that, look, you don't need to be a member of the armed forces or even a member of Nigerian police to be a national security advisor. You can be a university don who understands security better than those who have even worn the uniform. And let me ask you, for all this while that we have been using members of the armed forces as national security advisors, then what happens? I am someone who believes that the end justifies the means. Have they now been able to solve Nigerian insecurity problems? Of course, the answer is no. So what is the purpose of insisting that only those who have come from the military should occupy that position, when they had been occupying that same position and we have been having issues with our security? So is it not better that we try another set of people? Because you can't be doing the same thing over and over again and then you expect a different outcome. So I don't agree, I don't subscribe to that argument that you must have worn the uniform to occupy the position of the national security advisor. I can be a national security advisor. You can be a national security advisor, provided you have understanding of national security.
All right. So now,
and let me say, this man who has been appointed for even being a police officer, you know, understood security issues. The only problem is that he was not of their rank, therefore they cannot be answerable to him. But that's wrong.
Now that's where my next question is going
very
to.
Wrong. If Mr. President, anybody Mr. President appoints to any position, that person is that Mr. President in that position. So everybody else must queue up and take orders from that person.
But then over time, we've seen this inter-service rivalry where one will say, I'm more superior than the other, and then you keep seeing all those clashes going on between them. Don't you think such might happen?
That is a misguided mindset. If Mr. President picks you up now and say, look, I'm going to make you this and I make you that, it means that you are that Mr. President there. You are representing him. Everybody else must follow you. You know, democracy is about, the control of the armed forces by the civilians. That's what democracy is all about. And if you look at all the various places in the world where there is democracy, civilians are the ones who are in charge. And those in the armed forces take order from them. It's not the other way around. So that whole postulation and the argument, as far as I'm concerned, are all total nonsense. They don't make any sense to me.
All right, let's talk about the new service chiefs. Even though we saw that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had summoned, given the marching order to the previous ones, and then few days later, he decided to bring in the new chiefs. So in that regard, first, I'd like to ask you two questions, and I'd like you to unbundle them in one breath. First, would you actually say that he was able to clear up, there was more of ethnic balancing in this new appointment as against what we've always had initially? And then secondly, I keep hearing people say that what does it even matter if it's a particular tribe or a particular religion? Competence should matter. Does it actually matter to you?
Yeah, of course, competence do matter. But I do believe that there's competence in every place. I didn't see those appointments as ethnic-based appointments. Okay. I saw them as regional. Oh, okay. Because there's a difference between ethnicity and region. There may be different ethnic groups in one particular region, and in some other regions you may have just one. So it was not ethnic based, but it was regional based. He wanted to make sure that all the geopolitical zones were represented, right? Not necessarily all the ethnic groups. Because if it's based on ethnic groups, we are going to have 400 plus more service chiefs in Nigeria to make sure that every ethnic group in Nigeria is represented. So, but the appointment was based on geopolitical zones to make sure that every geopolitical zone is represented. And I think it's a good thing that he did that, because we have had instances where people from the same region or the same enclave were appointed to those positions, and they end up having groupthink. Security matters are very complicated issues. So you should be able to have diverse opinions to be able to make a rational decision. If you have people who have shared the same background and the same mindset occupy such positions, what you're going to end up is groupthink. You will not have balanced views and opinions as a commander-in-chief to be able to make the best decision for your country. So I have to commend him for ensuring that there is balance, there is diversity in his security team. Because if you look at Nigeria as it is right now, there is no part of this country where you will say that there are no insecurity problems. There are security issues everywhere in this country. And each of those security situations are unique and specific to a particular place. And so you need to have people from those areas so that you'll be able to get a good insight of what is going in those areas and be able to make a well-informed decision on how to be able to solve those problems. So I have to commend him for ensuring balance in those appointments. This is what had eluded Nigeria in the last 8 years. So, but thank God that the man came in and he didn't toe the part of his predecessor. He looked at the issue from a very broad perspective and ensured that that federal character was reflected in the appointment of the service chiefs.
Just like he said that he was going to govern by federal character principles and the rule of law. Now let's come back to I talked about inter-service rivalry between some of our security officials. Now, we've always seen and heard of this rivalry between some, like the police and the military or the paramilitary, or you have a rivalry between the DSS and the EFCC. And we saw the show of shame that happened a few days ago. And then also you have so many of them. Yes, so sir. How best do you think that he would be able, the NSA first, will be able to put all of these people together to make them understand that it's security first before your position or your service?
I think Mr. President had started by saying the right things. I saw the other day when he went to visit the former NSA before he made this recent appointment, to inspect their new facility, and where he has asked them to stop. I wanted to remember the exact phrase he used, but he asked them to stop working across each other and be able to work in synergy with each other, and that is the way it's supposed to be. In places where you don't work in synergy, there is no effectiveness, because each of all these security institutions were created by law to deal with specific problems. However, every now and then, none of those issues are isolated, so there's always that overlap, and so you have to be able to work in synergy to be able to ensure that there is free flow of information, so that those who are in the position to take action or take decision will be able to get the right information and be able to take the right action. We've witnessed that rivalry in so many occasions and in so many times, and even those of us who are not wearing the uniforms, we are not comfortable with that, because we know that will impact their ability to be able to protect us and protect our property. And so it's something that has to stop. And the way it will stop is not by preaching the gospel to them, because we have been preaching this as gospel to them, that they must work in synergy. The NSA should ensure that is that clearing house, for all these security agencies, by ensuring that everybody, there has to be a forum where everybody comes together to particularly share intelligence and make sure the appropriate institution, that intelligence is made available to an appropriate institution that we actually act on it. That's one. Now, number two is that there has to be some deterrent. People have to get punished. Anytime we see those kind of show of shame, like you said, the issue between the EFCC and the DSS. Now, the president ordered the DSS to vacate the facility of the EFCC. But we need to go further than that. There ought to have been, if we want to stop the rivalry, there ought to have been some kind of investigation to find out exactly what happened. And let those who are culpable be held responsible. And that will be a deterrent. That will be an example that will, stop others who would intend to do similar thing, in the future. It's because there are no consequences, when these kind of things happen. That's why they keep occurring over and over again. So in essence, there must be some kind of deterrence. There must be some kind of punishment. People must be held accountable for those kind of violations.
Just like what we saw during the Kuje prison attack. Even up until now, you still ask, how come no heads has been is let to roll at the moment? All right, so let's take other stories. But okay, no, before we leave about the NSA and the new service chiefs, now we understand, you also stated that insecurity is peculiar to a particular region, to a particular place. So now you have new NSA who has his shoes really full and tied up. You have insecurity, you have banditry, kidnapping, and then in some parts you have the militancy, you have the Biafra agitations and all of that. So he has quite a number of hydra-headed challenge to deal with. So how positive are you that he will be able to deliver on this deliverables? That's one on the side. And then the second question I would like to ask is with regards to collaboration with foreign security architecture to fight this insecurity, how do you actually think or advise that we should look in that direction? Because I actually saw one, according to the UN Peace Corps, they said that they said, and quote, the formal service chiefs weren't perfect, but Nigeria's outgoing service chiefs brought Boko Haram to its knees, as they also advised the newly appointed service chiefs to sustain the momentum and end insecurity in the country. So do you see any foreign collaborations here?
With the current people?
Yes, with the current
people.
Let's
take let's take the first question. The NSA is not working alone, right? NSA is not a security outfit, so to say. Just a clearinghouse. You know, the person that brings all of them together and advises Mr. President on national security issues, right? You still have the military, you still have the police, you still have the civil defense, you still have the DSS, all of this. So it's not a matter of him as an individual, you know, or the NSA office as a place, right? It's about all these people, you know, working together effectively and also succeeding together. So he's going to rely on all these other institutions, you know, to be able to succeed. And that is why it's important that there's that synergy amongst all of them, because they must work together to be able to achieve that same objective. All of them have the same one objective, and that objective is to keep Nigeria safe. And so they will all have to, he will have to rely on them to be able to succeed in that office.
Okay.
So that's my explanation in that particular question. Now, as far as like collaborating with, you know, other various other governments, yes, of course, it's something that has to continue to happen. You know, for example, terrorism is a global phenomenon, it's a global issue. And so you need to work with other countries, particularly in the areas of intelligence. And also, you know that most of the equipment that we use, our armed forces and all the other security agencies use, are imported from outside Nigeria. So we will have to work with those people to be able to make sure that we have the right equipment, the right training, and sometimes we get the right intelligence information from them for us to be able to continue to degrade whether it's Boko Haram or ISWAP.
Or would you actually say we've not been getting this intelligence over time?
Do I say
and what have we done with them?
Well, you see, government has to prevent crime 100% to be successful, right? But the criminals only need to succeed once to be successful. Now, that something happened now does not mean that we have not prevented others in the past. It's not that you don't hear about them, okay? You don't hear about the ones that they are able to prevent. The ones that we hear about are just one or two in which the criminals were successful. So I would say that they have not been using the intelligence that they get from, you know, other governments or even the ones that we generated here ourselves. You know, but what I would say is that, just like I mentioned, government has to prevent crime 100% of the time to be successful. And you know that it's very difficult to achieve that. There is no where in the world where you have, you know, absolute security. What you do have is relative security, because there will be crime, you know. And even if it's just one crime, government will be deemed as having not succeeded because one crime had taken place. But you wouldn't remember that before that one crime took place, maybe they had prevented 1,000 of them that they did not allow to take place. So that's the way it is. So, answer to your question, I would not say that they have not been using those intelligence. I would say that they probably have been using those intelligence to prevent various criminal activities from taking place that you and I are not aware of.
All right, now let's talk about the former militant leader, Asari Dokubo, who made some statement indicting the Nigerian military with regards to oil theft. We've heard this statement even coming from the chairman of Tantita Services, that's government, Tampolo. So what are your, let's start by getting your thoughts with regards to all the statements indicting the military, saying that they have a hand in all of this. What came to you immediately you heard that comments from him?
Let me tell you, I'm from the Niger Delta. We see all these things. We've lived through all these things. I don't believe that the military as an institution, had participated in oil theft. But just like in every institution, you're always going to have one or two bad apples. What I can tell you is that the top echelon of Nigerian armed forces may not be aware of what happens on the ground. These are just maybe minor one or two, low-ranking soldiers who are out there in the field, collecting 1 naira or 2 naira there. But to say that
they have to move such large batches, and then you say that those at the top echelon will not be aware of it, just the ZKDs, they call them, the smaller officers. How possible is that?
Let me tell you, right? The people who are stealing Nigerian crude oil are not the Nigerian military. The people who are stealing Nigerian crude oil are the oil workers themselves, in connivance with NNPC workers. Because they're the ones that report. You see, this oil theft they're talking about, you see, what they are stealing from all these communities are just a tip of the iceberg, just a drop of sand in the ocean. The actual oil bunkering is taking place at the terminals, where they sell all this crude oil. These people are conniving with NNPC officials, some unscrupulous oil workers, to underreport their total output. And they sell these things and make huge monies for themselves. Nigerian armed forces, they don't have expertise in how much, on the reportage of output production of Nigeria. Their own is to provide security. And if you provide them documents saying that this thing is legit, the documents don't come from them. If you provide documents showing that something is legit, of course, they will allow that badge to sell out, to sell through. They're not the ones that make. They're not the ones that make that produce the documents. Also,
you mean that even though they are, like you said, they are supposed to provide security.
Yes.
But then you've had statements coming from even the Tantita Services that was given the contract to provide information, saying that you see large birds being moved away, and then you have security officials like the Navy around there. So you're actually making us understand that it could be that they think it's legit. That's why they let it go.
If you provide them with, if you show the military legitimate document, they will let you go, because your transaction is legitimate. It's not in the position of the Nigerian military to issue those documents. There is no vessel that sails out in the ocean without documents. So who gives them those documents that they use in sailing out? So that is the issue. I don't know that Nigerian military goes to oil wellhead to go and start tapping oil from oil wellhead, or that they go to burst pipelines. I don't know that. I don't think that is what happens. At least from the part of the Niger Delta that I come from, what they do is that they man checkpoints. Right. They can compromise. Somebody can come there with some of those stolen products, and they compromise by collecting 1 naira, 2 naira. And this is like very low rank officers, not their top echelon as was being propagated and projected in the media. But I am not telling you that the actual bunkering is taking place at the terminals, where these things are tallied up and they're discharged into batches and exported.
So does it mean that some of the governors of this Niger Delta region, or some of the traditional leaders or rulers, does it mean that they don't even also have an idea of who is stealing from Nigeria's purse?
I've told you that the people are aware. People know what is happening there. But what can you as an individual do? Right? As a private citizen, what can you do? It's not your job. You can give information, but if that information is not acted upon, so what do you do as an individual? I'm telling you that the books are cooked. They cook the books. They fabricate documents. That is how this crude oil is being stolen. How many barrels of crude oil is one local guy in the village going to tap from the pipeline that is going to, kill Nigeria? How many barrels does he even collect barrels? The thing is happening at the terminal where books are cooked. They fabricate numbers, underreport the numbers, and they connive with their foreign partners, fabricate documents, and they sell all these things, for their own use.
All right. We're going to quick break, and when we return, we'll continue this conversation with Captain Bishop Johnson. I will see you after this time out. Join us again.
The military is asking to bring names, name the people that you believe that are involved. And I think that the military should go further than that. It's not a matter of just telling him to name names. They should take actions. You understand? There has to be action. They should give him ultimatum, give him a certain number of hours in which if he does not name names of those officers who are involved in that bunkering, they should take him to court.
If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you actually just joined us, you've missed out on a whole lot, but then you can still join the second half of the show. My guest on the show today is Captain Bishop Johnson. He is U.S. Army retired, and he is also national defense and military strategist. All right, before we went on that break, you've actually talked about how much the military, for those from the lower cadre, and then could actually get involved in oil thieves. But then you've not actually touched on the question I asked about what the statements made by the former militant leader with regards to oil thieves. He talked about that. He said quite a number of things that he made at the State House few days ago, and then he also made some statements that that is actually hitting the polity with regards to the region. I don't want to mention name at the moment. He made some statement with regards to Nnamdi Kanu, and then all through social media I've gotten loads of messages asking why would he say this? I'm trying not to read from those messages because we can't actually take some of those words. But what are your thoughts in that sense?
You see, let me go back to the press conference that he did at the State House. I think it was a shame as far as I am concerned. I don't think that individuals should have access to seat of government, sit in front of our coat of arms, the very symbol of Nigerian authority.
Before you go ahead, when you say individuals, what do you mean by individuals? Are you talking about?
I'm talking about Asare. He's not a government official. He's a private citizen. Okay. Right? The private citizens, maybe because they have relationship with the president, should be allowed to sit in front of our coat of arms in our seat of government and address the press. I think it was wrong. Not only that it was wrong, we are talking about what is the integrity of the individual in question. All of everything that was said in that so-called press release was just for selfish purposes. The guy is looking for contract. He's looking for recognition by Mr. President. Maybe he's jealous that his kinsman, Tom Polo, was given a huge contract. Now he wants his own.
But that's a personal opinion, though.
No, but that's what it seems to be, because he has relationship with Mr. President. But let me, because we are leaving objects to pursue shadows there. If you listen to the press release that the issue that we need to be talking about is not even about the bunkering thing and the indictment of the military. The military is asking to bring names. Name the people that you believe that are involved. And I think that the military should go further than that. It's not a matter of just telling him to name names. They should take actions. You understand? There has to be action. They should give him automatic, give him a certain number of hours in which if he does not produce, he does not name names of those officers who are involved in that bunkering, they should take him to court. Because just like as individuals can take institutions to court, institutions can also take individuals to court for libel. So they should do that. Now, but why do I say that we are leaving objects to pursue shadows here? This man said that he was providing security for Nigerians. He mentioned some states in Nigeria where he and his boys were providing security. So to me, what that statement means is that our government, because he also indicted our government, right? That our government was contracting its fundamental and basic function, which is the responsibility of government to protect lives and property in Nigeria. You see, we had a social contract with our government that we will not bear arms. Therefore, that right to bear arms will reside with the government. But that in return, the government should use those arms to keep us safe. There is nowhere in our law where an individual is allowed to carry those automatic rifles. Now, if he is saying that he protected us, he protected lives and property of Nigerians, how did he get those weapons? Which law authorized him to acquire those weapons? Who contracted him? How was he paid? The last time I checked, the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps has never granted license to any private security company to bear arms in Nigeria. So how did he and his boys, how did they bear arms? Why did they bear arms? You see, those are the critical questions that the media need to be asking. They are not asking those questions, but they are just concentrated on bunkering, which to me, bunkering is a very minor and insignificant part of the things that were said by him. The most important thing and the most serious thing that borders on our national security is that our government contracted their basic function to a non-state actor, a rogue element, and a private citizen who by our law is not authorized to bear arms. Those are the questions that we need to be asking. We need to get answers to these questions. Are we saying that all the money that we have spent in defense and internal security are wasted if we are going to be contracting private citizens to provide security?
But the last I read, they said it was not to provide security, but information, because they always keep saying that you don't have to use kinetic measure, you have to use also non-kinetic. That's not what he said. He said the Nigerian military has complained that they don't have armaments. I'm quoting him now. He said armaments. That even they don't have, I think he said either 1% or 1/4 of the armament of the Nigerian military. That is a big lie. So that means that he had armament. If he had armament, but he does not have 1% of armament that, if he said he does not have 1% of the armament that the Nigerian military had, it means that he had armament. He didn't say that they were providing intelligence. He said they were the ones that people did not travel from Abuja to Kaduna safely, not because of the Nigerian military. I was not actually referring to him. I was referring to what was stated during the contract that was given to Tantita Services, though. Oh, no. I'm not referring to Tantita. I'm talking about Asare. Yes, Tantita is to provide intelligence. That's where, and of course, you have to use the people to provide intelligence. I don't fault that contract at all. I don't fault that one. So why do you have an issue with this one then? I have an issue with this one because they bear arms. As a private security organization, they are not supposed to bear arms. The Nigerian security, civil defense do not license private security companies to bear arms. And the last time I checked, Asari Dokobo is a private citizen. So he's not supposed to bear arms. The only people who are supposed to bear arms in this country are our security institutions, the armed forces, the police, the Nigerian security and civil defense. Even road safety does not bear arms. Nonetheless, a private security company. So that's why I am focusing on that. If he has said that, look, my men were providing intelligence information,
I will not have any issues with that, because citizens are supposed to provide intelligence to law enforcement. That's how it works. Law enforcement people cannot be everywhere every time. They will have to rely on you and I for intelligence, and for them to be able to utilize those intelligence to carry out their operations. But when you say you bear arms, then I have a question with that. Because when individuals begin to bear arms, we're heading towards places like Mogadishu, Somalia. And we're getting into that realm of what they call felon and failed states. A situation where the state is not able to protect the lives and property of their citizens, that they had to contract it out to non-state actors and rogue elements. That is the implication of that comment. And that's why I have issues with that. And that's why I said that a lot more needs to be done. There has to be questions asked to be able to get to the bottom of all this. Because if in fact it's actually happening, then we're in a very serious problem.
I hear you say rogue elements. Now let's go a little bit further. There's some of the statement that he made, and then the further statements that he has made via social media, which he talked about Nnamdi Kanu saying that he is a criminal. And then I saw someone sent us a message on social media saying that if Asari calls Nnamdi Kanu a criminal, then what exactly is he? So because you talked about rogue elements, so having him make this kind of statements, especially to that region. I saw a particular one that he made on Instagram saying, talking about Nnamdi Kanu does not need to be released, saying that Igbos will continue to suffer, saying, talking about slave trade and all. Why do we have all these statements coming around, especially at this time when we're trying to even further unite us than divide us?
Well, you see, a lot of people have this penchant for, cheap attention, right? This individual is looking for cheap recognition. And I have to advise Mr. President to separate his personal relationships with people from his professional relationships. He should use professionals to govern if he must succeed. And I also advise him to do himself a great favor by distancing himself from some of all these characters with questionable, past. I watched that I listened to some of all these videos that you're talking about. They were unwarranted, they were needless. But because this is a very self-centered human being who is seeking for cheap attention, it has become a tradition in Nigeria that if you want to get cheap attention in Nigeria, you have to go Igbo bashing, or what the former President Olusegun Obasanjo described as Igbophobia, if you need to get attention.
Why do you have to do that Igbophobia then?
Absolutely no reason. But this is a deranged individual, so I don't even know why anybody is even taking him serious. If Nigeria would to be a country like other countries, this individual is supposed to be in the street corners of Port Harcourt pushing wheelbarrow. He's not that smart. I listened to that praise. He's not a coherent human being. I don't see the intelligence in him. Even his kinsman Tompolo is even more intelligent than him and more calculative and more restrained. So I don't think we should take this guy any seriously. We should just look at him as someone who is intended to utilize, to exploit the personal relationship that he has with Mr. President. And I hope he doesn't succeed, right? I hope he does not succeed. He does not understand the issue of slave trade. Slave trade is a very complicated history, which nobody wants to relive that history. Slavery took place all over West Africa. It was not unique to any particular place. The Europeans who traded in human beings then were looking for farmers that would farm in their plantations. And there were already plantation farmers in West Africa, so they did not need much training. If you go to Ghana, there was slave trading in Ghana, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and every other parts of West Africa. So it's not unique to a particular ethnic group in Nigeria. So that's why I'm saying that, sometimes some of all these people don't know what they're talking about. You see, half education is a disease. I think I would prefer either you're fully educated or you're not even educated at all. Because when you have people that have this half education who think that they know and they don't know, he himself does not understand that most people where he comes from were former slaves. They were sold as slaves. They just were not transported to the Europe and the Americas, because most of this slave thing took place at the coast. And if you go by history, those who were traded by the Igbos were like those who committed crimes, the bad elements in the society, those who committed the abomination, or those who were conquered in wars and stuff like that. And so instead of killing them, they traded them as slaves. But it's something that took place throughout the whole of Africa, West Africa. It's not unique to any particular ethnic group. So that comment was specifically targeted at Mr. President. It's just like this, he thinks that, and thank God, the man who occupies that office does not have this myopic and narrow mindset as this, cheap attention seeker. And so I don't think he will take him serious. But I have to advise Mr. President that he should do himself a great favor by beginning to distance himself from some of all these rogue elements. This guy has criminal past. People say he's ex-militant. What is the X about it? Do we have ex-armed robbers or ex-kidnappers? If you're a militant, you're a militant.
But what don't they always say that when they repented, so it means actually they might not actually go back again. After you have repentant Boko Haram also.
You're talking about in terms of morality now, right? But like legally, if you're a criminal, you're a criminal. You're a criminal. It will be in your record until that person dies. It remains there. So if you have been a militant, you are a militant. So I don't know where the X is coming from.
Now, how do we actually, not only from because you talked about Mr. President, how he
these militants were not just militants, they were insurrectionists, right? And economic saboteurs. Because that was what happened. This bunkering that we're talking about, these are the people that started the bunkering thing in Nigeria. So now they want to claim angel, claim saint. Where they in fact were the ones who started it. Where do you think they got all the monies that they are parading? That's where their wealth came from.
How do we actually, let's come back to how we can read ourselves completely from this Igbo phobia, Yoruba phobia, Hausa phobia, just read ourselves completely, because when that statement came, you still have some people under the comment section still bashing each other. But it's been a long time coming. How do we read ourselves all of this?
The government has to take it very seriously, because if we continue to go in the direction that we are heading, there may be genocide in this country. We can't continue to bash each other. So the way to stop it is to begin to hold people accountable for some of the things that they say on the social media space or any other space. I have not been a proponent of having some kind of regulation of the social media. But events of the last few years is convincing me to believe that there has to be some kind of accountability in the social media. You can't just continue, you can't come to social media and spew hates that are capable of inciting a particular group of people against the other, creating disaffection amongst citizens of the same country, and you're not held to account. There has to be some kind of accountability. Social media cannot continue to be Wild Wild West as it is right now. People should be held accountable for knowingly distributing and disseminating falsehoods and propaganda and the hate speeches that are capable of derailing the very existence of this country. We need more peace and unity now than ever. Particularly after coming out from what was a very, very divisive election season. So what we need now is less of that division, but more of cohesion and unity. And we can't achieve it when you have people spewing hate speeches, denigrating, ethnic groups for cheap attention and selfish interest. So government somehow has to hold people accountable. Like if he had been called in for those hate speeches that he made and probably prosecuted, maybe other people will learn from that, and that will become a deterrent to those who would engage in such kind of activities in the future.
All right, before we wind down, let's quickly talk about the recent report that made the headline a few days ago with regards to ISWAP and Boko Haram battle for supremacy. And we know that this is not the first time that we hear about this kind of stories. A few months ago, a few years ago, we've seen things like this happen and then you just begin to wonder. Even some people would actually tell you that ISWAP, Boko Haram, what's the same? Is it not just tomato, same difference? So, but then you still keep hearing stories about this battle for supremacy, the battle for territory and all of that. Is it going to say that that's the affirmation from the Bible verse that says there will always be a kingdom against kingdom? What's this all about?
Well, let me tell you right off the bat, there is good news for Nigeria. Right?
But then some people still lost their life in that battle.
Yes. The people who are losing their lives, are they not? They are members of either of those groups. Nigerians should pray that they will fight themselves to death, and that will be the end of ISWAP and Boko Haram, because none of those groups mean good to Nigeria. They are all fighting for the same thing. They want to establish their own caliphate. You see, that's sometimes when I hear people talking about, Southeast wants to secede from Nigeria. I just look at these people and I laugh. The actual place that people had taken action to secede is even in the Northeast, where Boko Haram had conquered communities and villages, raised their flags, took over, set up administrative centers, collected taxes from Nigerian citizens. That is secession. So this is what these people are trying to achieve in that part of Nigeria. They want to establish their own caliphate, their own country, where they will govern themselves outside the constitution and laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So it will be a good thing for Nigeria that there is actually infighting between the two groups. They should fight themselves to death. I mean, we can even cash in their inter-rivalry to collect more intelligence on either of the two groups.
But then have you seen a situation where you have two armed robbers chasing each other, or you have the police and the armed robber chasing each other? You know that there are definitely going to be casualties around that area. Yeah, sure. It depends on where it's taking place. If it's taking place within their domain, there won't be civilian casualties or collateral damages. It's only when it's taking place within amongst citizens. But that's where the institution has to come in. The institution can capitalize on that internal rivalry to gain advantage over them. It's not an unusual thing for some of all these terrorist organizations to fight each other. I know that Al-Qaeda and ISIS never agreed. If you go to Afghanistan right now, the Taliban and ISIS don't agree. And we know that ISWAP and Boko Haram do not agree because they are all fighting for supremacy. But don't get deceived by their inter-rivalry, because they have the same objective. The same objective is to kill and propagate their reign of terror, bloodshed amongst Nigerians. So we as Nigerians should take advantage of their inter-rivalry to gain advantage over them and continue to degrade them. All right. Lastly, let's look at the statements made by the new acting Inspector General of Police after he was decorated by the Vice President. He said he made a statement saying that Really, I can't describe how I feel presently, but if I have to tell you anything, I will tell you that right now I feel like a tiger inside of me, ready to chase away all Nigerian criminals. And then some other time he stated that I feel like a lion that is ready to devour all the internal enemies of Nigerians. But then that statement has come under criticism by some Nigerians who said that, remember that the same people who you call criminals are still part of Nigerians, because you know that there's still the human rights aspect of it, where Nigeria is even a co-signee to some of this human rights charter. And then I had a guest one time who said that if he decides to call everybody, say he wants to fight criminals, you should understand that inside the criminals, because you understand that in every thing that happens, there are people who wants to get a great kill from its insecurity. There are people who are cashing out from it. So it might be that you have friends who might be cashing out of this insecurity, who should be referred to as enemies of Nigerians. How then would you deal with such people? Like they say, amidst 12 disciples, there will always be a Judas. So what are your thoughts in that statement? Is there anything to look into in that statement that he made? Is it wrong for him to say that he's going to go against or devour all Nigerian enemies? And if it happens that one of his friends is among that enemy, would he still stand as the lion that will devour that enemy?
There's absolutely nothing to read into that comment. See, at times we don't know what we want. We complain of insecurity. When somebody said, look, I want to come and fight that insecurity, we start reading literary meaning into what they said. The man said he wants to fight insecurity. Is it not what we want him to do? When he was appointed the Inspector General of Police, we appointed that Inspector General of Police so that he can come and deal with insecurity in Nigeria. That is he going to become a tiger? Of course we know he's not going to turn into a tiger. He's a human being. But I take it as one of those complexities in human management. Human beings are the most difficult people to manage.
Just like former President Muhammadu Buhari
yes,
said.
Because you don't know what they want. They are the ones who complain about insecurity. And this man has come out and said, look, I'm going to deal with insecurity. And people are reading literary meaning into that. He said he wants to be a tiger that will devour criminals. Can you really believe that the Inspector General of Police is going to turn into tiger and begin to devour people?
I guess where this whole statement is coming from is the fact that Nigeria is a co-signee to some of this human rights charter. You have the ICCR and all. So if you call these people criminal, you want to deal with them. Remember that they also have rights.
I agree with you. He did not say he did say he was going to kill them. That he will deal with criminals. It still means that he's going to go through the normal procedures, where criminals are arrested and prosecuted, possibly convicted and sentenced. The statement that the man, I did not read it that he said he's going to carry out extrajudicial killings. I did not read it. That's not what I'm reading from that comment that he made. We're taking that statement literally, and I don't think we should be doing that. This is a man that was just appointed Inspector General of Police, maybe out of excitement. Because how many percentage of Nigerian police officers actually become IGP? Up to 1%. So if you are one of those who are appointed into that position, you have to consider yourself blessed. And so maybe out of that excitement, the man didn't know what to say, and he said he's going to, turn into it. He's not saying that he's going to carry out extrajudicial killings of criminals.
All right, great. I think that's why we actually need someone to help us diffuse that statement, because it's almost turned into something else. Thank you so much, Captain Bishop Johnson. It's always a pleasure having this discussion with you.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure being here.
Great. All right, so that's where we end our conversation for today. I'm sure you must have been rightly educated, entertained, and informed. I will see you next time. Keep watching The Conversation, because you never know who my next guest will be and what I will be talking about again. My name is Annabelle Oji. God bless you and yours. God bless Nigeria.